This one seemed like a good way to go next. And I don't know any more than that. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jake, and you can kick us off. I know we have a long list of witnesses, some of whom are here in the room and some of whom are joining us on Zoom. So welcome to everybody. And actually, before I turn it over to you thoroughly, Jake, maybe we should introduce ourselves because I know there's some new faces here. And then we can have you, if you want, to just have people introduce themselves when we get through the committee. But so for those of you who don't know, I'm David Durfee. I chair the committee and I live in Shaftesbury, which is in Bennington County. I represent Shaftesbury and Sunderland and Glastonbury and represent Supernaut. I'm going to go next.
Sure, and then representative Heather Supernaut. I represent Windsor 4, the towns of Barnard, Pomfret, Bridgewater, and Stratford.
Hi, John O'Brien. I represent Windsor Orange 1, that's Royalton and Windsor, and Tunbridge and Maine.
Richard Nelson or Reach One. I had the town of Derby. Jedwabski, Lamoille 1, Stowe.
I'm Newman Morgan. I represent Grand Isle County and the western portion of the town of Milton, where I live.
And Representative Boslin is in another committee. She had to go out briefly. She'll be back. Representative Byrd is out today, maybe joining us on Zoom. I'm not sure. Sidonia is our committee assistant. And with that, I will actually turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And so, for the record, Jake Claro, the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund. I'm the Farm to Plate Director and a resident of Berry City. I think by the end of the hour and a half here, our hope is that you will understand everything there is to know about food hubs in Vermont, what they do, why they're important, and some of the critical, challenges and opportunities that they're going to be facing both in the near term and over the long term. So really, I'm just setting up a little context, and then I'm going to hand it over to a number of representatives from each of the food hubs. And then we also have a couple of farmers, producers who utilize their services and are going to speak to the value and importance of that. So without further ado, I'm going to get going. So we probably hear this term a lot, but I wanted to just first establish that we are going to be using this term quite a bit. What do we mean exactly by a food hub? So this is an organization that actively manages the aggregation, storage, logistics and distribution, and marketing of source identified food products from local and regional producers to satisfy wholesale, retail, and institutional demand. And so some of those source identified products that these hubs aggregate, distribute, and market may also include products that are processed at one of the hubs in its own facilities. And I think what you'll hear throughout today's testimony is that each of the hubs is a little different, and there's kind of a different flavor to what they do, but they generally are covering kind of this core element of their bringing product together, they're storing it in some capacity, and then really the key element is that they're arranging all the logistics for the movement of that food and the distribution of it to end markets. And with that too is this key component of it's going to be either a local product or a regionally sourced product. And they do a really great job of identifying those specific farms that they're selling to end users.
So I think I understand source identified, but what does that look like as you move further down the?
Maybe that'll be a better question for each of the hubs to kind of, you can maybe touch upon your source identification. Because it looks different, I think, depending on the case. Yeah. And then what is the Vermont Food Hub Collaborative? So this is the collaborative network of 6 nonprofit food hubs spanning the major subregions of the state who are committed to increasing sales and market opportunities for local producers. And as you'll see in this list, and each of these hubs will be represented today in the testimony. They are covering Middlebury, Hardwick, Brattleboro, Newport, Burlington, and Rutland from that's where their operations are based, but many of them are operating statewide or across multiple counties. And as we'll hear too, that they're working together to connect, say, producers in the Middlebury region with markets and opportunities elsewhere. So a lot of interconnection, but also a lot of community work, that's happening where they're located. And just going to briefly cover why the Food Hub Collaborative matters. But I think I'm also going to be leaning on each of them to be talking about this, and also some of the producers that are going to be testifying too. So really just kind of laying out an overview. To start, their work addresses the legislative outcomes of the Farm to Plate Investment Program. So in different ways, they are helping to increase economic development and create jobs in our farm and food sector. They're enhancing our resiliency of the working landscape, both in terms of supporting farms, but also in terms of emergency response work that they've been called to action to do in the past couple of years. And then a lot of what they're doing is improving access to healthy local foods for all Vermonters. So there's not only a market component to providing market access to producers in different for institutions, retail, schools, but they're also working with food shelves. They're helping address food access issues with some of the work that they're doing as well. So they are, as organizations and operations, helping to really address these three major outcomes of the Farm to Plate Investment Program. And then within the strategic plan itself, they're addressing multiple strategic goals: increasing economic output, increasing demand for local food. They're helping to diversify not only our production portfolio, but they're also offering services that are really valued and needed for small, medium scale farms and food businesses. They are helping people in Vermont get access to local food across multiple locations. So as I mentioned, they're doing farm to school. They're working with institutions, restaurants, grocers, and charitable food. So they're really hitting upon all these critical areas that Vermonters are going to be in some ways either purchasing, obtaining, being served local food. And then some of them, I think are going to touch upon this too, is that they're making our state more resilient and making our food system more responsive in these times of emergencies, whether that's climate-related natural disasters or during the pandemic, filling supply chain gaps and deficiencies that many people were experiencing. The food hubs have been a critical player in that work. And not to get too in the weeds of just the distribution industry and talk about too many trends here, but there are many reasons Vermont producers, and we're going to, I think, hear from the producers themselves today about this, where they couldn't get there from here without the food hubs and the services that they provide. So, just generally, the distribution industry has gotten more and more consolidated. We've got 3 broadline distributors who account for 34% of total wholesale distribution market share nationally. And Performance Food Group, the 3rd largest, owns Reinhart and Black River Produce. So they've recently acquired one of what was a local distributor. So those impacts are being felt very directly here in Vermont. And what that consolidation means is that their supply chains are harder to access for small, mid-sized businesses. They're looking at things more from a national perspective, not necessarily a regional one. So there's a lot of ways that consolidation prevents access for producers that are here in Vermont to get onto a truck and make it to market. And then kind of a similar element to this is that the rural nature of our state makes it, I was trying to figure out the right terminology here, unappealing for broadline distributors to service, or vulnerable to getting dropped by national or multinational companies for economic reasons. So the Horizon Danone decision to terminate organic dairy contracts in the Northeast, if you look at their rationale for that, was very much around these rural areas are very hard to service with, we don't have the infrastructure and it's just not economical anymore to operate in those areas. So that's more and more with consolidation is going to be also more and more the calculus of large companies is to look at things, from a national perspective, not necessarily from a regional lens, and make these business decisions that have dramatic impacts on farms. And then, and then small scale producers that we have, may not have required volume or business scale to feasibly work with larger distributors, even if they are kind of available and operating in this region. Or it may be too difficult to absorb the costs of self-distribution. So there's a real gap and need for the types of distribution services that the food hubs offer and what they're trying to build out, as a network and as individual hubs. And then I'll leave it here and turn it over. Really looking at these direct impacts and what the food hubs collectively are doing for the state, for our food system. They're selling or distributing over $19 million worth of local and regional food annually. And that's directly benefiting the economic viability of our state's farm and food producers. They're working with and providing services to over 400 farmers and food businesses. They sell or deliver to over 850 customers, and that can be directly to individuals, food shelves, schools, universities, hospitals, restaurants, grocery stores. So they're really touching upon a diverse and large number of customers that Vermonters are then able to access that local food that they're delivering. And they're also, I think it's important to highlight too, there's a lot of really skilled people who are working at the food hubs who represent a range of occupations and skill sets, warehouse and logistics management, sales and marketing, commercial trucking. So they're also an important employer and attracting people to the state to be involved in food in the food system in different ways maybe that people wouldn't have thought of. So yeah, definitely should not diminish that impact as well. And I think with that, this is a good time now to, yeah. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
Hey, just because I think this committee likes food history, what did food hubs, what was in their place, maybe I should say, in like 2000 or 1975? I mean, interesting sort of what they came out of, what was there. You talked about consolidation.
Right.
Was there in 1975 a sort of version of this?
There might be some folks here on the bench here who have better perspective on history, but like the co-ops used to have a shared like distribution entity. I think that in some ways fulfilled this role. I mentioned Black River Produce, before they were bought out, had freight services that were really vital to small producers. So they were providing that on a service fee basis, which some of the hubs now have taken up that role and increasingly are taking on that role. So there was, I think there were kind of smaller independent distribution options, plus the cooperatives, co-op stores had like a different model. And they were just at a different scale and kind of operations early in their history. So yeah, that landscape has drastically changed. And the small independent space has gotten more constrained as consolidations happen. Yeah.
Related question, and you may not know it, but when I'm curious, and we'll probably be able to ask directly, but how old are the food hubs? When did they begin doing their work?
Yeah, each of them is a little different in terms of time and operation, and so I think we'll kind of hear that, and it is representative too, I think, of the different sort of sizes of the hubs themselves and kind of where they are in their own growth trajectory and establishment. I'd certainly say it's safe to say in the last 15 years is where we've kind of seen the hubs emerge, and there's some that have emerged kind of later in that timeline than others. So yeah, I think this is a perfect transition now to bring up Lindsay Burke, the Addison County Relocalization Network. And I will
Move this.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Burke, and I serve as the Executive Director of ACORN, or the Addison County Relocalization Network. I actually live in Brandon, which is Rutland County. We operate the ACORN Food Hub in Middlebury. And first, I wanted to say thank you for meeting with us this afternoon. And this is also my first time testifying, so if I seem nervous, that's why. So ACORN's mission, for those of you who don't know, we strive to strengthen the local food and farming economy in Vermont Champlain Valley. We organized informally in 2005, so we've been around for 20 years, but we formally formed as a 501c3 in 2009. And we first primarily served as a network and information hub with no physical space. We did all remote work before that was a cool thing. We've adapted our programming over the years. You might have heard of some of our other programs like Financing the Working Landscape, the Sustainable Living Expo, our Stone Soup Farm to School gatherings. Those have come and gone with time. But some of the things that have stayed are our local food and farm guide. So we're about to print our 15th edition, and there's about 250 local farms and food producers listed in the guide. I brought extra copies if that helps serve your work. And then we also have a Tour de Farms biking farm tour to celebrate the harvest, and we do a lot of farm to school initiatives. But we first started physically moving food in 2019 with our Pharmacy Food is Medicine program, and that's pharmacy with an F. And then in 2022, we opened our food hub to answer your question. So we're one of the newer food hubs that have emerged. And the ACORN Food Hub exists and has been successful in its infancy because of ACORN's origin as a network and the 20 years of experience we have working with local food producers around the Champlain Valley, establishing trust, which we know a lot of food producers want before they get involved with any sort of third-party entity. Prior to opening, we had been exploring how a food hub might work in Addison County for over a decade, as the Route 7 corridor has been historically underdeveloped with regards to local food infrastructure due to our rural nature and the mountainous geographical challenges. Trucks don't want to come over the Green Mountains. The Champlain Valley, however, as you all know, is the heartland of Vermont's commercial agriculture, with over 700 local food producers. Farmers in our region can grow more food if they have stable markets, infrastructure for storage, and the ability to connect to a wider distribution network. The ACORN Food Hub offers an online wholesale market, cold storage, cross-docking, and delivery to make it easier for wholesale buyers such as restaurant chefs, school and hospital food service directors, and grocery store buyers to source Champlain Valley products. The ACORN Food Hub increases access to markets for local food producers, promotes farm viability, and contributes to a vibrant local economy. It's also making it easier to get local food into K-12 schools. Additionally, our Pharmacy Food is Medicine program is now housed within the Food Hub. This is a huge upgrade from our first 3 years in a parking lot location. I won't get into all the challenges of that. But part community-supported agriculture and part doctor's orders, the pharmacy program is free for patients who have been referred by their physicians. The farm shares are sourced from local farms and come with supplemental educational materials. And we modeled our program after the Vermont Farmers Food Center. We actually hired Heidi as a consultant. So we've been working as partners for a number of years. It's important to note that we started moving food charitably at first, buying food from farmers, packing CSA bags, and giving them away for free. Now we're also in the commercial food world, moving food not only around the Champlain Valley, but also around the state and out of the state, thanks to our Food Hub network partners. We are selling food as far north as Jericho, and thanks to Vermont Farmers Food Center's cross-docking space in Rutland, we are selling and distributing food as far south as Danby and Shrewsbury. We sell to the Essex Food Hub across the lake in Essex, New York, and we're now putting cases of Champlain Valley products on Farm Connects trucks that bring products to the Northeast Kingdom and beyond. Lastly, something that we're really excited about is we're partnering with private distributors such as Lesser Distribution, Pumpkin Village, and Myers Produce, allowing us to better serve more remote customers while securing new markets for local producers. It's clear that the ACORN Food Hub is providing a critical need for short-term cold storage, cross-docking, and last-mile delivery, building relationships and driving sales that wouldn't otherwise happen. We're not operating independently. We are part of a food hub ecosystem that is emerging across the state, New England, and the US. As the old saying goes, we're stronger together, and I truly believe that all Vermonters are benefiting from this collaboration of an independent, mission-driven food hub network as we each work to strengthen our own community's food shed. Thank you. Would anybody like a food and farm guide for the Champlain Valley? I'll just leave them here and
Before you, can we ask you a question?
Yes.
We have one. And thank you for that information. Did you, Representative Nelson, were you about to ask a question?
No, I'm good.
Well, I will ask a question. So you have you began in 2022,
The fall of, we opened our doors in the fall of 2022,
and where are those doors?
at Middlebury, Exchange Street. So,
In Middlebury.
yeah, in Middlebury.
And was that, did you build or did you build out?
Question. There was one warehouse available when we were looking, when it took us 2 years to do the research and get the funding to open our doors. And when we were looking for a place to open, there was one warehouse available in the industrial park. And CVOEO, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, was looking at the same space to operate their own food pantry out of. And they nabbed it first, but then they offered to share it with us. So we actually have an MOU where we share the space.
It has freezer space.
It has a walk-in cooler, a walk-in freezer. We've got a vehicle with a refrigerator unit to,
Right.
yeah.
How many staff do you have?
We've got 2 full-time and 2 part-time, and then an AmeriCorps Eco member that we also share with CVOEO.
Anybody else have a question?
And that's where Acorn is in general, that Food Hub only has 2 part-time staff. But it's nestled under Acorn as a larger organization, which is, we're in an interesting position where we're wondering if we tailor all of our marketing and branding to just be the Acorn Food Hub. And all of our other fundraising efforts will just go to fund the Food Hub.
You're still doing the work that you've been doing for
Right.
years.
Yeah, and it was just a part-time ED, like I was by myself and when after COVID, we had 2 part-time employees and we had 1 part-time employee, and then we've built up since the pandemic.
Representative O'Brien?
I just wondered how, sort of monetarily it works. If I'm a farmer, I have apples or potatoes, and I want you to help me get that produce out there, how do fees work for that sort of fiscal relationship?
It's a great question. So if you want to sell through our market, we have an online wholesale market and you get to decide what your wholesale pricing is, what the pack size is. We can help offer suggestions, but we don't drive the prices. We really want the farmers to get the pricing that they want. And then you list your inventory and your availability on the market every week. It's a weekly sales cycle. The public, the buyers have about 3 days to go in, make their purchases. The market opens on Friday. You have the weekend to make your purchases. Monday morning it closes. We send out pick tickets to the farmers. The farmers get their stuff to the Food Hub, ideally by Wednesday morning, which is our distribution day. And that's when we're sending our truck out or people can come and pick it up. So we have a small markup, like on the back end, that the customers will pay. But it's not as high as a private distributor because we don't want to eat into the farmers' margins and we don't want to make local food more expensive. So we're operating in this very thin area where we can try to make this work, make local food more accessible and still make farms viable. And then we also offer fees for service such as cold storage. We can distribute food even if you're not selling the food through the market. Like we'll move some meat from a meat processor back to the farm, or we will do other sort of one-off deliveries. And then we also offer cold storage at a monthly subscription. And I think Hannah, who's on the call with Blue Ledge Farm, she uses that for a private distributor to come and pick up her cheese who doesn't otherwise want to come to her farm.
So how do you say, like, I'm Bridgeport Elementary, they might get in touch with you or even like Shaw's or a restaurant in
Shaw's is a dream. Yeah, so we now have a sales and marketing person who is actively making the phone calls. We're part of the Farm to School network, but we are trying to strengthen the relationships with the food school service buyers. We had the local Food for Schools money. I don't know how much you're aware of the local Food for Schools credits that were issued to food hubs, and the school service food service directors were able to use that credit and spend down. So we were able to start a lot of relationships, but so much of this work is so contingent on like one person that if that one person leaves the school, you have to start all over again. So we now have a dedicated person who's there to strengthen those relationships.
All right. Well, I know we've got a lot of other folks in the room, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I see you have Jamie Hamilton listed.
Yeah, has it Baird Farm?
No, the Hamilton cow.
Yeah.
Grass fed beef.
Yeah. Yeah, he grazes it on the origin.
Oh, that's all.
All right.
John, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. I am John Ramsey. I'm the executive director at the Center for Agricultural Economy in Hardwick. And our organization is 21 years old. We have about 15 staff that are dedicated to our food hub work and 38 total staff. In Hardwick, we operate 2 different food hub facilities. And our core region is really sort of Windsor, Middlebury, North, Champlain Islands, Northeast Kingdom, into Lancaster, Littleton, Lebanon sort of area, sort of our sort of core geographic range. And some of our programs are actually statewide. We have a revolving loan program where we make small loans to farms, and that's one of our programs that's actually statewide. But our food hub work really began with the opening of the Vermont Food Venture Center, which was a new facility that was constructed in 2010. The old Vermont Food Venture Center was up in Fairfax and was relocated to Hardwick, was a separate organization and brought under the umbrella of CAE. So we've owned and managed that facility since 2010. And in that facility, we lease a creamery to cheesemaker Jasper Hill, and we also have commercial kitchens that farm and food producers can come and utilize to make value-added products themselves. After a couple of years of operating that facility and seeing a few produce farmers come and go who wanted to come in and make their own line of prepared produce products like, diced potatoes or shredded cabbage, and seeing those numbers actually decline, we started our own program where we are now processing all of that produce ourselves. So last year we purchased in around 175,000 pounds of root crops from farmers that our staff bring in into the facility and prepare into ready-to-use cuts like shredded cabbage and diced potatoes and diced beets. So that was a real big sort of growth point for the organization because what it allowed was for farms to scale up some of the growing that they were doing for us without having to go and do all the labor themselves, right? So farmers, we ask a lot of our farmers, and to ask them to come in and also be produce processors was, a very, challenging thing to really sort of scale. And all of that food that we prepare for, which is called our Just Cut program, goes to schools, hospitals, and colleges. Yeah.
Representative Nelson.
That's at the Yellow Barn.
Nope, I'll get to that.
Okay. That's where Allie Howell works.
Yes. Yeah.
She's my girl.
Cool. All right. So, the Vermont Food Venture Center is still, supporting those individual producers as they're making value-added products. And now we're still, every year getting fresh produce, out to schools and hospitals and colleges through our Just Cut program. I think last year we surpassed 1 million pounds of root crops that we had purchased and processed in the facility for that program. Since 2019, the organization has really gone through a growth spurt. We went from about 13 employees to a total of 38 now over the course of COVID. And that was really in response to many needs of the community, including some of the food access needs and the emergency response needs of communities in time of COVID and also, in the time of flood recovery. One of the big growth areas, though, was Farm Connects, which is our trucking, logistics, and distribution service. So unlike a lot of the other hubs, the only sales that we're managing are the sales of our own products that we produce. So we are really a facilitator and a linker between hubs in terms of the movement of food. And so Farm Connects is our trucking, logistics, aggregation service. And we just moved that program into the new warehouse, which is adjacent to the Yellow Barn. So that new warehouse, we just fit up and constructed over 5,000 square feet of cold, frozen, and root crop storage to really scale up distribution. Products are really coming in through that space from all 4 corners of the state. And we're, working with some of the, broadline distributors who won't go out to the farms that, Jake and Lindsay was talking about. They'll come to a centralized location. So we're working with them in that capacity, but we're also doing a lot of what we call sort of first mile pickup, meaning like the first mile, like from the farm to wherever the food needs to go. So our trucks are going out 6 days a week, back roads, snowstorms, floods, and picking up that product. And then we also do a lot of last mile delivery. to farm stands, stores. We deliver to Hannaford's, all of the co-ops, all the independent grocers. And what we're really finding is that there's a need to deliver to our small rural country stores. We're talking a lot today about farm and food producers, but there's also this network of businesses in our communities that is really tied to local food. And I think that is a common theme that we're sort of seeing from all of the hubs. So, of course, we're delivering to Craftsbury General Store and, all those things, but like places like Huron's or, Arbor Farm Market up in, Grand Isle, all of these small independent stores are also seeking these local products because they want to support their local farms. They want, a dollar spent in food, local food, cycles through the community many, many, many times. And I would just reiterate that, again, if you've seen one food hub, you've seen one. And if there's any opportunities, through the course of the summer where you might be out, doing some visits, we would all, welcome you to come and tour and, see what we have going on. So, yeah.
Thank you. Representative Lipsky, question.
Thank you, John. You talked a lot about, the distributors to schools, to institutions, and larger distributors. We've had testimony, I think, from Myers.
Yep, they use our warehouse.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah.
But I'm concerned about an older couple that may be in Hardwick or Bulkhead or someone local. East Hardwick, do you sell to families if they come to your facility, if they have a vehicle?
We don't see, no, we're not, our model is not.
Zero.
Our model is not, but we have a whole host of community programs, as do the other organizations, that's really linking local food and communities. And, we have a variation of like what Lindsay was talking about with the pharmacy program, where we're working to get more local food out to seniors and food pantry clients and, other folks in the community. Yep. We actually were doing our produce to pantries program with Lamoille Food Share. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Bryan.
John, how, and this is for the other food hubs too, how does like collaboration or maybe even competition work? So I'm thinking of Pete's Greens wanted to get into the Hanover Co-op system or DHMC, and then Food Connects in Brattleboro, Carlos wanted to do the same thing. I mean, is there ever sort of knocking, or is there really more of a collaborative effort?
I think that can happen. I think that can happen. I think that, really what we're all striving to do is increase market access for all of the producers we work with. And, we work with Pete's Greens. We do all of their wholesale distribution and their CSA distribution. So, it's and with the other hubs, like we're in Middlebury delivering for Stratford or Sweet Rowan. So we're there, we're picking up, and we can pick up, Hannah's cheese while it's there and bring it to Myers, who then might do something else with it. So there is a lot of collaboration where, comparatively, we are all small organizations compared to sort of the, sort of like big sort of like broadliners, and we have to look at ways in which we can leverage those collaborations and those partnerships.
Representative Nelson.
So you work on the theory of backhaul's a good thing.
Yes.
You run out loaded, you unload and pick up products they have that you don't have access to up here.
Yes.
I think that's a great model.
And I think there's also times where we're out delivering product, picking up product and bringing it back. There's also times when we're out delivering product, we pick up product and we deliver it en route and it never even gets back. So there's, every variation of logistics.
How are you hooked up with the restaurant trade, or you haven't been able to crack that?
I know we deliver to some restaurants, but I think some of the other hubs really speak to that sort of like account development.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think a visit sounds like it'd be a lot of fun, and thank you for the invitation. I know, Richard, you're up next, and you have a standing invitation to several of us to come down to Brattleboro too, and maybe you'll be there, maybe you won't be there. Anyway, welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. So yeah, I'll follow up with another variation of a food hub. just to make it more confusing for you all. Food Connects is based in Brattleboro, and I'm the co-founder and executive director. We started our food hub in 2009, so one of the older versions. I'll talk a little bit more about the food hub in a minute, but we also run a farm to school program, which primarily serves Windham County schools. And we also do some consulting for other food hubs, especially around food safety and some other expertise that we've developed, over the years as a food hub. Last year, we did close to $4 million in revenue in food sales. So on the larger side of Vermont food hubs, and still quite insignificant when it comes to mainstream distribution. We sourced from about 130 different farms and food producers. Most of them are from Vermont, but don't tell anybody. We also serve Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Part of our geographic area, we're in the southeast part of the state, so we're connected to these more of a regional economy here. What's great to see is that people outside of Vermont want to buy Vermont products. So we're leaning into that. And then we sell to over 300 wholesale customers. So we sell to a lot of schools, other institutions, and a lot of retail, small retailers like John was talking about, as well as co-ops and food shelves, food pantries. We sell to a lot of different customers. I think this has been mentioned, but our main focus is to support producers getting easier access to markets. We've seen consolidation. We've seen producers get cut off. We've seen producers have their what they're paid becoming less and less, and fees that they're charged becoming more and more. So we're trying to be a middle person that's more supportive of the farms. And at the same time, we want to increase food access in our rural areas. These larger distributors have also cut off small customers in our communities. And so, I think one question earlier was, what's kind of the history and the emergence of food hubs and what existed before. A lot of our growth over the last few years have come because these other distributors are pulling out of our areas. And so we're realizing new markets, we're growing, but it's into these rural areas in particular and picking up new customers that Black River Produce no longer serves and producers that they no longer serve. We've grown quite a bit over the last 5 years, and I like to say take some pride in what we're doing is the right thing to do. But I also am very aware that in some ways we are like a canary in the mine shaft. Where there is a warning here that there's a problem with distribution in our rural areas, and there's a big reason that we're growing is because of this problem. And so that leads into the variety of services that we offer. We have a sales team. We are out hitting the road, working with wholesale customers, working to increase sales. We do a lot of marketing to make sure that people know where these products are from, to tell stories about the producers. We're involved in logistics. We do direct deliveries. And then we've also been investing in infrastructure so we can offer storage and cross-docking in our facility. We've been very focused on this critical infrastructure development, very capital-intensive needs in our food system. So we've got a 17,000 square foot facility in Brattleboro. We're recently completing a 1,600 square foot cooler and a 800 square foot freezer. The price tag on that is over $500,000. And then we've also got refrigerated vehicles, and then the warehouse equipment, forklifts and lifts and those types of things. All very capital intensive, but very needed for the success for producers, getting access to markets, making efficient supply chains, and then really also this food security element of making sure that we've got food stored in Vermont for when we're cut off or when we need it. We have invested in a very robust software platform so that we have e-commerce, inventory, routing, and accounting all in one system. So we're doing our best to modernize and to play like the big kids while still remaining, grounded here in, in Vermont scale. So we're kind of pushing the envelope in terms of, size and scale for what's relevant for Vermont and, what's really allowing us to compete and be sustainable. We source from or sell to 13 of 14 counties in Vermont. And the way that we do that is through partnership. So we learn about not new producers, but we learn about producers that are interested in wholesale in partnership with the members of Food Hubs in this room. And then we work on the logistics, primarily in partnership with Farm Connects and Center for Ag Economy, so that we can get products to our facility and then off to our customers. And these are often customers outside of the state, so these are new markets for many Vermont producers. The CAE truck comes to our facility once a week, and there's food going both ways usually. And that's a big goal of ours, is to continue moving product in between our partnerships here. The last thing I'll say is just, really being focused on this decentralized distribution network is a form of resilience, not only for Vermont producers, but for Vermont communities, so that there's food available during times of disruption. During the COVID pandemic disruption, the sales of our collective Food Hubs increased dramatically as supply chains were cut off, and especially as demand for Vermont products increased. So seeing the core benefits of economic growth and food access, and also climate resiliency through this collaboration. And I'll stop there. Been a lot of information so far.
Right. Any questions for Richard Brattleboro?
Awesome.
Representative O'Brien.
Richard, since you're involved in this, how hard is it for our local producers to break into the sort of mainline grocery stores, the Hannaford's and Shaw's and Price Choppers, because at least they know that you have a degree of professionalism now, so you're in that business and can deliver so much on time, have the software to back that sort of thing up. I just wondered, do you get involved in that with local producers, or is it really up to them to call up Hannaford's and say we can get you eggs every day of the year?
It's a little bit of both. It's actually really hard to get into Hannaford as a distributor, and it took us a couple of years once we started the process formally to be approved as a vendor, and then just a lot of paperwork and back and forth. And I don't think that's the same for a producer, but the big challenge are the logistics of getting into the store. For Hannaford in particular, many Hannafords require the producer or the distributor to stock the shelves in the store, and actually they don't have staff that will take the yogurt and move it to the front once a bunch of people have purchased it. So that's a really big barrier, for a lot of our producers. So there are other segments of the store that don't require that. So we were able to get into Hannaford selling produce, which is a completely different system. But, it seems like it is worth it for a distributor to get approved as a vendor into these larger retail chains, and then, do the role that we do well, which is aggregate. And so bring a bunch of products to market instead of just relying, on a producer on a one-on-one basis. Although that can work. But it really is a multifaceted strategy that's necessary. But they don't make it easy. I think they don't make it easy. That's a point I'd like to leave you with. Yeah.
Rich, I was curious earlier about the expression source identified. It seemed to be key to the definition of a food hub, or something that was integral to what food hubs are and do. So in your particular case, in that example, if you were bringing carrots, say, to Hannaford that you'd purchased, or that you were facilitating that transaction, I'm not sure whether you're buying and selling, but at the retail level, then does the customer see carrot with a farm named, or do they just see Vermont carrots?
So it's interesting for the start of Food Connects and the Food Hub, it was very much source identified. Every customer wanted to know which farm it was from. And this was when we were, hyper local focused. When we were really Windham County focused, it was our wholesale buyers wanted to be able to tell their end users, this came from Harlow Farm or this came from Dutton Farm, and just make that connection very clear. As we've expanded geographically and, looking more regionally, that exact source identification is less important for customers. And so when we're bringing a carrot into the Hannaford stores, it's under the Vermont Way Foods brand. And that in itself, saying Vermont on it is an effective marketing tool and is satisfying for certain customers. I know that there are others that want to know exactly which farm that comes from. But I can say also that Vermont Way Foods carrots were going into market basket stores throughout New England, and they were very happy to just have a bag of carrots that said Vermont Way Foods on it. And that was the marketing in itself. They did not have to do any additional marketing, just the fact that it was a Vermont carrot. So different customers have different interests in source identification.
Yep, that certainly makes sense. All right, well, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
And I've got next on the list, Catherine.
I just wanted to add a brief little tidbit about the source identification. I think a lot of if producers have retail ready pack sizes, it will source identify their farm on those packs. A lot of the farms that I know our Food Hub works with and some of the others are really small and mid-sized farms. And so they're not really producing to scale where they're looking to get into Hannafords. They want to do more co-ops or institutions. So there's a lot of different things at play there. But if there's a producer at scale and they're packing their own carrots, it will have the source identification on it. We just don't work with a lot of farms that big. So hello, thank you for meeting with us and taking the time to hear our testimony. My name is Catherine Cusack, and I'm the Executive Director of Green Mountain Farm to School based in Newport. We were incorporated in 2008, and since 2009, we have owned and operated Green Mountain Farm Direct. That's a non-asset holding, wholesale aggregation and distribution food hub, serving institutional and retail accounts throughout Vermont. Non-asset holding, means we don't have warehouses or trucks. And I'll get to how we pull this off a little bit later. In addition to our food hub, we offer a K-12 education program and implement numerous food access and anti-hunger initiatives across the Northeast Kingdom. Our team is small. We have 7 permanent staff members and host 4 AmeriCare members annually. We reach over 19 schools on an annual basis with farm to school programming and serve more than 4,000 free summer meals to children under 18 with our lunchbox food truck.
Nelson's got to end up here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I have to go to another meeting, but did the loss of the 1.2 or $1.7 million in the FFS farm for
The LFS?
Yeah, how bad does that really hit our program up home?
It sure does. It decreases schools' buying power. Financially, the hubs were carrying out that work without any administrative overhead being covered. And so we were kind of footing the bill for that. But schools' buying power has been decreased. And some schools were really counting on that second round when they were preparing their budgets.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a kind of a big deal.
We're still working on that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we do summer meals through our lunchbox food truck, which has a focus on local food in those meals. Our mission is to strengthen the local food system by promoting positive economic relationships, education, and access between schools, farms, and communities. Operating 52 weeks a year since 2009, so one of the older hubs, Green Mountain Farm Direct has facilitated the sale of over $4 million in local food to schools, hospitals, prisons, and retail outlets throughout northern and central Vermont. We're selling and coordinating distribution for 50 farms. So we've been around a while, but not as large as you heard Food Connects is, but also serving a really rural area of the state with a lower population density. So selling and coordinating distribution for 50 farms with more added during peak season and as opportunities arise. And we're delivering to over 100 wholesale accounts, accounting for approximately, we're projecting $850,000 in sales for fiscal year 25. We do this through a concerted partnership with the Center for an Agricultural Economy, who we contract to provide our trucking and storage services through their freight enterprise Farm Connects and through the partnerships with the other members of the Food Hub Collaborative. At the close of Farm Direct's order cycle at 11 a.m. every Monday, no holidays or snow days are observed. A flurry of emails, text messages, and phone calls are made to answer last-minute questions, fulfilled orders, convey any delivery changes to the other members of the collaborative. Our teams share multiple spreadsheets, bill of lading systems, and certifications in support of our farm partners. Selling and distributing local food to local outlets requires support across the supply chain, from collaborating with farmers on forward contracting so schools can serve healthy, nutritious food, to conferring with retail customers on what products they need in order to meet their customers' demand and create economic opportunity throughout. The systems we have created allow our farm partners to remain competitive in the food marketplace. You've heard a lot about this, where broadline distributors continue to place unrealistic expectations on farms to meet high minimums, often have hidden fees for missed shipments or lag in sales. Green Mountain Farm Direct does not charge our producers for our services, and we pay fair market value for cost of goods in support of farm viability. Much like all the other hubs, our producers set their market price. We have built a transactional network that allows us to fill product gaps and meet consumer demand while providing greater market access for small to mid-sized farms. Currently, Green Mountain Farm Direct has transactional relationships with all members of the Vermont Food Hub Collaborative. We are able to combine farm pickups by using warehouse space and loading docks at the Intervale Center, Acorn, and Food Connects, and source from producers that we don't have direct relationships with and are represented primarily by the Vermont Farmers Food Center and Acorn in the southwestern counties and Food Connects in the southeastern. And so there's a lot of relationship connections happening. And while relying on CAE and Farm Connects to make deliveries and store our inventory, we can eliminate unnecessary pickups by storing items at the CAE's new warehouse space, leading to increased access for customers and less paperwork and labor for farms. In turn, the other hubs buy food from us that isn't available in their regions, making a round trip much more viable when product is moving both north and south. The work of the Vermont Food Hub Collaborative has seen a tremendous uptick since the pandemic, when we were able to respond to multiple needs due to the time and attention this group has put into building a resilient food system. Through our Food Hub transactions, we're able to move food from one corner of the state to the other. We have a fee structure and routing procedures well documented. Each hub offers complementary services to one another, and we have kept an eye on efficiency and sustainability throughout our planning and years of growth. Newport and the rest of the NEK is hard hit with economic downturn, high unemployment rates, low educational attainment, and limited access to infrastructure and opportunity as compared with the rest of the state. But that doesn't mean we aren't capable of building resiliency and overcoming challenges. The last 2+ years alone have proven that. We have many partners and work to respond to the food and agricultural needs in the kingdom as nimbly and responsibly as possible. Farm Direct's ability to support Vermont's farmers and food producers and provide local food to a variety of populations under disastrous circumstances is directly related to the strength and collaboration inherent within this Food Hub Collaborative. I thank you for listening.
Thank you. I mentioned that you serve the entire state or throughout Vermont. I don't know that it's the entire state.
Throughout Vermont, yes.
Yeah, and 19 schools, you said that.
We do our farm to school programming in 19 schools. About half of our customer base for Farm Direct, so about 50 schools source food from Farm Direct, but our direct educational program is.
Programming, okay.
Yeah, is 19 schools in the kingdom, but we're delivering food. I always say if you draw a line east to west through Montpelier, we're really working north of that, but that might be a little outdated since we're starting to expand a little bit more.
How many school food authority directors then do you have to heavily pitch with?
Well, 50. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. They require a lot of considerations, whether it's certain delivery times. There's sometimes where drivers are texting food school authorities, if there's a snow day or a holiday. Sometimes, people don't want to use the online ordering platform, so they'll email, they'll make phone calls. And, every week, my team is looking at the list and seeing, okay, have they ordered yet today? Have they ordered yet today? For our regular customers. And if not, we reach out to them and they say, oh, we forgot or time got away from us. And so it's a lot of hand holding to make that happen. And I think it's well appreciated. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Travis.
Hey, good afternoon. It's amazing to be here on Zoom and hear all this amazing work that my colleagues in the food hubs are doing. Thank you for inviting me. I wish I could be there in person. It's always great to kind of spend time together. And for the record, I'm the executive director of the Intervale Center, Travis Marcotte. I grew up on a farm in Charlotte with my grandparents' dairy farm, and now I live up in Fletcher. So I'm in Franklin County. I also, in addition to just sharing my enthusiasm with being with my colleagues of the food hubs, I do want to thank Amy and Eli and Hannah for joining us today. Super grateful for your time. I know it's busy out there on the farms this time of year. I think my goal is to kind of share a little bit about the Intervale Center and then really zero in on our small food hub up here in Burlington. The Intervale Center is about 35 years old. We're a statewide farm and food organization working in all corners of the state right now. And then our home base is really the 360 acres that we manage here in the Burlington area. We have about 30 employees depending on the season and pretty much work every day to strengthen our food system. All in all, our work is supporting farmers, central to our work, supporting land and the water that underpins farming, and making sure that everybody in the state of Vermont has access to awesome food. Our work is really organized around 4 areas. Number 1, we provide a lot of statewide land access and farm business services to strengthen our agricultural economy. We're looking at everything from business development, work, cash flow analysis, enterprise planning with farmers, land access. You've heard from our team around Vermont Land Link in their testimony. And we have about 4 full-time folks that are placed around the state that are working with probably around 125 farms a year. The second kind of pillar of our work, is managing this one-of-a-kind asset, in Vermont's most populated area. It's about 360 acres, contiguous lands all along the Winooski River, leasing about 120 acres of that to commercial organic farmers. We're home to hundreds of community garden plots. We host dozens of events that are food related or weddings, manage about 5 miles of trails, and then steward both modern agricultural infrastructure and also nationally significant historic buildings. A third pillar is really work that we do to ensure that Vermont has the seeds, trees, shrubs, and stewardship services to meet water quality and other environmental goals. We operate a very large native seed and tree and shrub nursery And this year we'll probably collect around 50 million seeds, sell somewhere around 35,000 trees and shrubs for restoration efforts, and then propagate another 85,000 or so seedlings in our greenhouses that'll help our growth, but also other nurseries that are looking to expand production in the state of Vermont. And then finally, the other program area that we operate is a food hub. The Intervale Food Hub has been around. God, you sort of got me thinking about the timeline, but I think it was 2006 or 7 when we did the first kind of research to see what do farmers in Vermont want and need at the time, and what did consumers at the time want and need. And we really learned from farmers that they were looking for more access to markets, easier ways to get into market, ways to scale into markets. And then consumers were also looking for more access to the amazing variety of foods that Vermont producers, I think, were really starting to grow more and more of. We've now gone through a couple of decades of cycles. We were very focused on direct to consumer. So we were doing home delivery, workplace pickups, organizing online retail shopping, essentially. And that grew really rapidly through COVID. And then as COVID subsided, that also started to shrink as an opportunity for us. So we have recently pivoted away from the direct to consumer and are sort of taking our long time, small amounts of wholesale to institutional markets and starting to build that out a little bit more. So more specifically, our food hub, buys food from farmers and food producers looking to access primarily Chittenden County markets. Our largest market right now is institutional wholesale, like universities. And we also partner very closely with, John mentioned Just Cut. He brings that frozen product down here into our food hub, and then we get that product, distributed around up to the various dining halls up at the University of Vermont. So just one example of the many partnerships kind of happening in this room, or in this Zoom, I guess, that I'm on. We also provide storage infrastructure for farmers and food producers. That could be a beef farmer looking to store some frozen product, or a local drink maker who's looking to put something in our cooler for a little while. We're seeing some really exciting movement in cross-docking. This is essentially where a producer can drop a couple of pallets of product in the morning, and then another distributor like Food Connects or Myers Produce can come pick that up in the afternoon and bring that to other markets kind of along their route. So it really does build in some nice efficiency. And I think also what food hubs have been doing is really enhancing the work that we have to do to increase food access and general food security in our communities. So our food hub also manages free food services. And in 2024, that looked something like a free CSA that we had put together with about 700 people, 300 families coming each week to pick up free food to meet their needs. We've also done things like gleaning and food rescue. And last year, I think we saved somewhere around 110,000 pounds of food, and then got that redistributed back into the kitchens and the bellies of people that really needed it. Also, I think what's super exciting for us right now is kind of being in a place, having done this for a couple of decades, to be thinking about what is next and what is needed for infrastructure development in the food hub space, and in particular in Chittenden County. So we're partnering with the city of Burlington and doing some research essentially on the feasibility of processing space or incubator kitchen space, and sort of looking at that, what that might look like. And then also working with all of our food hub partners in the collaborative and others in the state around supply chain gaps that might still be resident in the Chittenden County area. And so I'll be back to share a little bit more probably in August or so, when we have a little bit more information on what filling some of those gaps might look like. So I think, this collaborative really is coming together strategically to think about what are the needs for Vermont, the Northeast, how can we better partner together Where should we be putting investment dollars? And then also there's really the in the operational part where staff from each food hub are literally getting together to talk about logistics and pricing and trucking, et cetera, et cetera. And so the collaborative, I think, for me really functions both strategically and then really nicely operationally to help Vermont sort of achieve its food system goals. So with that, thank you so much for having me join via Zoom. Sorry I can't be there in person. And I really look forward to the subsequent presentations from the farmers and the discussion after that.
All right, thank you, Travis. Any questions? All right, yeah, let's keep going then. Step right up.
Yeah, and be short and sweet so we have time to listen to the farmers here. But thank you for having us. As everyone said, my name's Heidi Lynch and I'm with the Vermont Farmers Food Center in Rutland. So our organization was founded by a group of farmers in 2012. They had the precedent of wanting to have access to local food 52 weeks a year. So their mission was to find a space in the community where we could host a winter farmers market. So we had a summer farmers market, but they wanted that year-round access. So they incorporated as a nonprofit, did a feasibility study and found this property right downtown Rutland with 4 existing buildings. It's a former industrial site. Purchased the property, renovated one of the buildings, and we have been hosting Winter Farmers Market there ever since 2012. Once we had that initial space and nonprofit, we began to build many of the community food access and agricultural programs that you've been hearing about. So we started with a pharmacy food as medicine program that Lindsay mentioned. So working with local hospital to prescribe shares of fruits and vegetables that we were purchasing from local farms with both philanthropic, donated and fee-for-service dollars. We went on to build an additional structure on the campus. It's 2.93 acres in total, right downtown Rutland. We built an urban greenhouse to have educational programming for youth, and part of the founding vision and why that property was selected was to build additional pieces of agricultural infrastructure and have them all co-located at that central place so that we could relocalize the food system. And so that additional infrastructure was kitchens, commercial kitchens for food businesses to do value-added processing, more aggregation, so cold storage space, and distribution. So being the geographic location that we are in Rutland, just connecting up the southwest region of the state. So we, similar to some of the stories you heard, I was first and only employee for a number of years. We had a little bit of growth around our education programming around 2019. And then that same year, we started to conduct business planning around developing the rest of the buildings on the site to build that infrastructure. Once the business planning was completed, that was like 2020. So we then proceeded to seek funding. We've secured over $3 million in investment. And so we've been in process of doing all that rehabilitation on site. So I think in the context of everything you've been hearing today, what we're now in the midst of is that Rutland is just going to be, have greater capacity to hold product, have more trucks come to Rutland and link up with all of these other distribution networks. And as Lindsay mentioned earlier, we've been working years just to name that how the Addison to Bennington corridor has sort of been a underdeveloped region of the state that we're now very actively connecting up with everyone, as you've just heard. I can just say as you mentioned, we founded in 2012. Much of our programming grew in the pandemic era, as you've been listening to, but it was part of our founding vision. So I think something that we've been naming in recent years when supply chains got disrupted, when we were one of the Everyone Eats hubs. So when like pandemic related food security programming happening, they all were happening at our campus. And so a lot of the sentiment was, this is what we've been, working to exist for. And so as these different, climate and food security initiatives and opportunities have launched, it has felt like, yes, this is what this place is intended to be. And we have learned so much by way of the collaborative, as Travis was just mentioning the fact, prior to us all pulling together as we have more recently, just the peer sharing best practices, we're getting to learn, lessons learned from the other hubs along the way. And then we're all able to think strategically about like this, where key infrastructure is located, how can we each play a differentiated and complementary role in this bigger system that we're creating. And so just, everyone's been saying it, but once again, that's what you have in this room, which I think is so exciting as far as opportunities for the state looking ahead. And I know that we want to give space to talk to the farmers, and then John and I are going to speak a little bit more to some of those opportunities and challenges that we're seeing as a collective.
Good, all right, because I was wondering how we were gonna wrap things up and if we had sort of questions that had percolated up a little bit. So good, well, I'll hold off on my questions anyway, and maybe we can move on to the farmers then.
Thank you.
Maybe Anna is our first.
Anna? Yep.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And even though there's not a lot of time left, I think it was important that we all showed up and put a face to some of the folks who benefit from these food hubs and all the hard work that is going on behind the scenes. So my husband and I run Blue Ledge Farm. We're a first generation goat farm and we process cheese. You might recognize me. I was sort of lurking in the corner in the Vermont Land Trust or Vermont Housing and Conservation Day that we had a couple weeks ago. So I'm also on the board of the Vermont Land Trust. And that's how I got to know John Ramsey 25 years ago. We were just kids, right, John?
Yeah.
Still are.
So we started we got our farm in 2000. We now have 3 full-time employees, 7 part-time employees. We process all of our own goat milk into cheese. We also purchase cheese from a small family farm 4 miles away.
Just happened to the volume.
Oh, you need to adjust the volume?
There we go, we're good.
You're good.
Okay, great. So I've been working with Lindsay at the Acorn Food Hub since its inception. I basically say my relationship with the Food Hub is 3-pronged. I am a vendor, so the Food Hub sells and distributes my product. And the beautiful thing about that is they also manage all of the invoicing. That's a tremendous amount of time savings for a small farm like ours. We don't have a full-time bookkeeper. It's my husband on Sunday nights and occasionally an afternoon here and there. So to have the Food Hub manage invoicing is a huge help to a small family farm like ours. So we're a vendor, so they sell and distribute our product. I'm also a renter, so I rent space in their cooler, and the Farm Connects trucks come every week and pick up our product and bring it to Hardwick, where it goes to Myers Produce, where it goes to Green Mountain Farm Direct. We use a different mechanism to get our cheese down to Food Connect. And then also we have distributors in the Boston area that drive up to Vermont and pick it up there at the Food Hub. So all of those things, many of those services used to be provided by Black River Produce. Back when they were a distributor and you'd call them up and sometimes Sean Buchanan, the owner, would happen to be answering the phone, right? That was 15 years ago. And since then, we have been working with them and they fill a wonderful niche, but they've been bought out 2 times in recent memory. And they decided they no longer wanted to offer that delivery service. So the Food Hubs and Food Connects with an X, the trucks, provide an essential service for us. My third way I'm involved with the Food Hub is as a customer. And my husband and I engage in the 25-pound carrot challenge. And we go on social media and we say, okay, here's our 25-pound bag of carrots. How can we consume 25 pounds of carrots? And I think it's really important as farmers that we also promote eating local foods. And so we're a big customer of the Food Hub as well. We also purchase products from the Food Hub to sell at our farm stand. So all of those in all of those three ways, I engage with our food hub as a vendor, as a renter, and as a consumer. And I can testify that it's a wonderful, wonderful system that we have in place, and something that, again, makes Vermont a real leader. What we lack in size, we make up for in grit and ingenuity. And it's always been the case, and I hope it always will be the case. And with that, unless there's questions, I'll let other farmers speak up.
Yeah, I think it may have been, I may have just missed you say it, or maybe when the power briefly went out there, but where is your farm?
Oh, we're in Leicester, Vermont. So we're just south of Middlebury, right in between Middlebury and Brandon, Lower Champlain Valley.
Okay, yeah, thank you. All right. I don't see any other burning questions, so if we want to move on, then I guess we can go to Amy.
It's muted.
Amy, yeah, we can't hear you. There you go.
There we go.
How's that? Okay. Sorry about that. Thanks. I'm Amy Heifer, and I farm with my husband and family and 16 employees, including our family, 11 that are out of our family, in Stratford, which is in Orange County in the middle of the state. We do glass bottled milk and ice cream, and 95% of our milk and 50% of our ice cream rides around on the Farm Connects trucks. And then through relays, I think it's at Food Connects. I don't know if it's in the, I get emails sometimes. We have 24 accounts that are older and that predate from when we had our own truck. And the rest of our accounts, and it's probably at least that many, are handled by Green Mountain Farm Direct. The 18 customers that I talked to on a Monday morning, if there were 19, it would be too many. And so if people come to us and want to come on board, I say, that's great. You need to talk to Catherine at Green Mountain Farm Direct, and she can totally get our stuff, and she can take care of all the follow-up. And she's not competing with actually milking the cows, getting, all the stuff that I do here. And John, your question about what it looked like in 1999 and 2000, before there were any of these food hubs, I can totally tell you, and it was dark from my perspective. We had our own truck and one driver, and if the driver was sick, then it was me driving the truck with my succession of small children riding shotgun. And so leaving here at 7 a.m. and getting back at 9 o'clock at night with an infant is pretty rough. And even at the time, Green Mountain Farm Direct was handling some of our accounts, and they were working with DNS Distributors, which is out of Hardwick, with Don Maynard, who started that, and then eventually that got bought, I guess, by the Farm Connects. So we, when they reached out to us and said, hey, we could do more if you want us to do, I said, how do you feel about doing everything? And they said, sure, which was great. And now they do that 95% of milk, half the ice cream. And there are some relays, like there's some of our stuff that goes for pickup to the Intervale for one of our customers who picks it up there. And we also work with 3 for-profit distributors, which is Myers Produce and Wilcox out of Arlington. Wilcox Ice Cream, they had a lot of frozen stuff. And also Farmers to You, which takes a lot of things, and Farm Connects moves a lot of stuff around for them. And they take our stuff to Boston, like this pre-order deal. And that's a lot of stuff that's moving around that I don't have to worry about. And the logistics of that are huge. Like we would have to make the call on a snowstorm. Like, what are we going to do? Trying to get up here first thing in the morning to get out. But what Farm Connects can do is they pick up our milk. It's at a warehouse. They can make the call. They're on a paved road like us. And it just makes everything kind of clicked. They can move things around. They can add things onto routes. They are traveling around more often than they actually have our milk on the route. So if they need to bring it later in the week or earlier, they can make that work in a way that even just trying to manage that would take half of the time I have in a week. And that's not very much time. The other thing, John, that you had asked about, or somebody asked about, it was about breaking into the big stores for like Hannaford or Shaw's. And we did that back when we had our own truck. And I got to say, it's not a goal to ever do it again. Those hassles of like breaking through don't end when you get there. You have to buy shelf space. They want you to stock the shelves. How do you do that when, you know, we're already too busy to move our stuff around? And the price point, like everything is a hassle. And also people don't necessarily want to buy our stuff at Shaw's or Price Chopper in Burlington, which was the place that we were in for a while. The co-ops in Vermont move a lot of product. They, when you go in there, everything is going to be great. And that's the culture that we want to be part of. And there's plenty of market there. So I'll be happy to answer questions. That's all.
Right. Any questions for Amy? Amy, I'm just going to say, since I represent Sunderland and we have Jake here, that although their mailing address is Arlington, Wilcox is actually physically in Sunderland.
Good to know. Very nice people. They're great.
All right. Then Eli, I think you're the last on the list. Thank you for being patient.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I don't want to take a lot of time. And I just really appreciate, what I've heard from the different food hubs that we work with, so many of them. I had sent a written testimony that really described kind of how the Intervale Food Hub specifically helped our farm get started. But I want to talk today a little bit and just give an overview of like how we work with so many of the different food hub systems in Vermont. So by way of introduction, I'm Eli Hirsch. I run Honeyfield Farm in Norwich, Vermont with my partner, Valerie. We started in 2020, so we're still a pretty new business. And we went from about maybe 6 or 8 employees our first year to now we hire a seasonal team of 20 plus employees for our nursery, greenhouses, and our field crop operation. So we work with our food hubs mostly for our field crops, our organic veggies, but we've also taken advantage of a lot of the like business technical advising services that so many of them offer. So kind of starting out, we were a small incubator farm in Fairfax, Vermont, renting land from a farm we worked at. And the way we were able to kind of become the larger farm we are now was through kind of leveraging the business momentum we grew through accessing wholesale markets. And the Intervale Food Hub was really one of the first partners that kind of let us get our foot in the door and start out doing a couple crops with them, and then kind of developed from there. And they were able to write us a letter of commitment when we had the opportunity to get onto larger land. And that really helped us kind of convince, our financiers that we were going to be able to go from a little 2-acre, part-time farm grossing, I think like $40,000 in our best year, at that time. And we had this business plan saying, hey, if you help us move down to this farm in Norwich, that's this great historical, legacy farm that used to be Killdeer Farm here, we think we can scale up and sell, over $500,000 of product in the next 3 years. And things like the Intervale Food Hub being able to give us a letter of commitment saying, we're going to buy more from you as soon as you have more, was really instrumental in helping us get access to that opportunity and then helping us actually do that, scaling up and surpass that goal, within 3 years. So we really feel very fortunate that we've had both that sales outlet, but then also we've been working with the Intervale Center Business Advising since 2015. And continue to utilize their services very frequently as our business continues to grow. We also work with Green Mountain Farm Direct the last couple of years, doing some of our products, especially peppers, through their farm to school programs. We also ship almost all of our wholesale produce through Farm Connects, which has been what's allowed us to expand our business and relocate from one corner of the state in Fairfax down to the Upper Valley and still maintain all of our partnerships in Burlington, like the Intervale Food Hub, City Market, and a lot of our other accounts up that way by continuing to ship our product without having to buy our own truck that could make that giant weekly loop, and hiring out and having to find the time and labor to send all our food up there. And additionally, with CAE, which has been a great partner, we've worked with them through their farmer loans. We have a loan through them. We, like I said, they probably transport, I would say, the majority of our vegetables. So a couple $100,000 a year of vegetables go through their trucks, and we don't know how we would get it anywhere without them. And additionally, we've utilized their business services. We sell through the Just Cut program. They've been working with us on a diced bell pepper product that's been going pretty well. So I wanted to just kind of take this opportunity to thank you all for taking the time to hear about how the food hubs have really, in my experience over the last 15 years while I've been farming in the state, have both helped give us the opportunity as young people who kind of focused on our farm career over maybe more lucrative careers that would have given us more financial backing going into this farming venture. The support of these food hubs, all of these business services, all of these market opportunities, all of these collaborations with other producers that they facilitate. It's really instrumental in being where we are now. It helped us take over, take this farm that was, maybe not going to stay as an active farm. It helped us take advantage of this opportunity to be on this beautiful land in Norwich and keep expanding our wholesale production and hire a staff, keep training younger farmers. And it's really hard to imagine going forward without this network of providers. And, even though we know that a lot of the federal funding is jeopardized, we see this as an opportunity for the state to really value, show the priorities that we've seen in the state of Vermont. Why we love living here is seeing that legislative support for what we all know we value in common. So this feels like a really good opportunity to really show support for the entire both agricultural community, but then also to point out how a program like a food hub really benefits not just the farmers and the family that it feeds, but the entire local economy, because it creates jobs. It puts more money back to the farmers, which 90% of the money we spend is in our local community or in, within Vermont to our vendors and our local hardware store, our local, everything we spend, we try to keep pretty local. And I wanted to just plug for how much the food hubs contribute to the Vermont economy overall, beyond just the food systems that they help support. So I won't take more of your time, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eli. So we've got another 3-5 minutes or so, and I think maybe John, were the two of you gonna?
Yeah, we just wanted to sort of name a few sort of conclusion points.
And
it's Brad Richards there.
Just to summarize, some of the themes I think that you're hearing, and make sure we note these points. So as I think, all of today, what we listened to, just you all got to hear in depth, both the increasing community opportunities as well as the needs and demands that the food hubs are uniquely balancing. So as a collective, not only are we looking to the future of how can we, coordinate infrastructure, be innovative of how we're all interacting with one another, but then we're simultaneously dealing with things like, we're losing a federal funding source for a large portion of food that we moved for the schools. We have, flooding situations happening. We have, pandemic funds that have come and gone. So just as hubs are seen more and more as vital to serving these different components of both community need and resilience. And we're doing so with the already limited resources that we have without funding to sort of specifically support that sort of integrated network of community opportunity and need.
I guess I'll just try to bring it home and say that we as a state have set very lofty goals through the farm to plate work that the Sustainable Jobs Fund has done, through the work that the Governor's Commission on the Future of Agriculture has done. And collectively, every day, this group of organizations and farmers, we are taking action and actually doing the work to see those goals fulfilled. And so whether that's increasing local food consumption or increasing the diversity of farms on our working landscape or increasing food access to our communities, we are taking action. Like we are investing in agriculture, and that is like front and center in our work every single day. Everybody is working to figure out really complex challenges to, solve some of these bigger, issues that we're facing as a state in terms of like, shifting markets that farmers are facing and climate crises and things. So we're all every day collectively taking action, investing, figuring things out, and it is not easy. There are a lot of barriers. I heard a lot today about questions about Shaws and Hannafords. That, like Richard was saying, that's a very, very, very challenging, opportunity to access. And breaking down those barriers is work that these hubs are doing every single day. So I think I just want to sort of leave you with that we're taking action on something that is very complex, very nuanced, and really requires a diversity of services in order to fulfill the needs of communities and all the producers we're working with.
Thank you. John.
I just wonder if you could speak about opportunities going forward. And let me just give you a quick example. In Tunbridge, we had 2 general stores. They both closed. Now they both opened again. But at the very beginning, they said they couldn't even get milk delivered, like Capital Candy or whoever, they've given up that route. So they were driving, to White River to buy milk. And I wondered, are there opportunities like that the food hubs could fill that like Black River used to do or Capital Candy used to do? But
Yes.
Now they've stopped.
Those are opportunities. Yes, those are opportunities. We work with a lot of, like I was saying earlier, a lot of rural country stores. And they can buy through one of the hubs. Our trucks can deliver it. That's a lot of the intent. Mateo Keeler from Jasper Hill often says that selling cheese within a 10-mile radius is actually more complex than selling cheese to, California or New York City or someplace. So like, again, we're relocalizing the food system here and breaking down those barriers. And, again, like, some of those broadline distributors have minimum, stop orders that, those small country stores like, can't fill. And so we're building out a system in which, our small rural communities can engage in, our small rural producers can engage in, our small rural schools can engage in. And it's really, sustaining thriving communities in Vermont. That's the goal.
And I would just tag along to say, I think like in the pandemic, when we saw supply chain disruptions, we saw everyone turning even more to local food. So I know farmers can attest to just how much they had increased sales, how much folks were relying on that network of like small general stores and farm stands. And that's the space that we're working in every day. And yes, there's been fluctuation since pandemic, but I think that's where there's opportunity. The more we strengthen what we saw happen then, that will be there for us with the ups and downs. And the farmers will grow when they know. I think we heard it multiple times, like they're able and ready to grow more, but it's the dependency on getting that food out, and the hubs are managing those logistics and opportunities.
And just really briefly, we're also taking on really complex and challenging infrastructure projects, and none of us are experts in construction and, infrastructure development. And I would just sort of attest to, I did a very quick tour of all of the hubs recently, and some of the challenges that we're taking on from an infrastructure standpoint do require some investment and some support because, again, the throughput of product and the millions and millions of dollars of product that are moving through these spaces is only going to sustain the work that the farmers are doing on the land.
I think we should wrap it up. We're going to hear more at the end of the week from Ellen and Jake and whoever else you might have lined up.
Small independent distributors, yeah.
Okay, good. So I think that if the committee's, got more questions, we probably do, we can save them for Friday. It's always great to hear from our farmers. We talk a lot about farmers. We don't always hear directly from them. So thank you for being with us and for staying on the call for so long. And also for we talk about farms. We don't often hear from farmers. We don't always hear from other folks in the supply chain. So really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah.